We cool. So we got a couple people watching in the Discord, a couple people watching in the YouTube. So I think I'll make a start now. I'm just gonna do my spiel on what these masterclasses are, like I do every time, but it's good to hone this in. We try and put them on every week or well, every few weeks in a month, every other week, every 3 weeks, something like that, and just aim to get really interesting artists and developers on every time, covering different aspects of not just the Off-World Live toolkit, but just real-time creative processes, awesome streaming techniques and things, just to get everyone educated, get everyone inspired. Um, we have this playlist of all the past masterclasses we've done, coming up to quite a few now, and they're just becoming quite a nice wealth of information. So if you're interested in seeing the past bits that we've covered, we've got that playlist up. I've had some amazing people on, like Sam Schroeder, who's made his interactive Niagara system controlled by blueprints. Had Mega Steak Man showing his full breakdown of how to use mocap to create like a animated scene. He did a whole skit within the hour, which was really fun. Um, Also had amazing VTubers like Woody and Glory the Animator and Riku VR sharing different sort of amazing tips just in the world of real-time creativity, really. This stream is on Discord, obviously, but also on YouTube and Twitch. You might want to try out those different channels if you might get better quality on some of those channels. Comments wise, you're free to comment in the Discord voice channel notes or anywhere in our Discord. I'll try and keep track of the comments. You can comment on the YouTube streams and Twitch streams, obviously, and I'll try and just butt in with any questions at a convenient time, sort of thing. It's quite nice to keep it open, and discussion is key here, being a live stream. So very very open to people asking questions as we go along. You'll all be muted on joining the voice channel, but I'm happy to have a bit of a hangout after if anyone wants to. We can chat more about this if anyone's inspired. And there'll be a re-upload of this on the YouTube shortly after. So if you miss anything, we'll have that nice permanent resource, as I said, in the masterclass playlist. So this time we have Peter, aka PDC Sky, and he's made his amazing Light It Up overlay, which was he saw the need for more customization in these in-stream overlays while playing Street Fighter, and it was this overlay that shows your controller, shows your button inputs, and Pete was like, we need more customization. So he was like, fine, I'll do it myself. I'll make this. And he's like, as a result, he's made this now incredibly complex and advanced system for customizing your HUD, basically your in-stream kind of controller overlay. And it's got 113 different layouts of 16 buttons, which is just an insane amount of data to process. And we're going to see some amazing stuff on how he's use data tables and things to really reduce that workload and keep on top of all that data. I think we'll take a look at Peter's awesome Light It Up overlay and learn some of the amazing lessons he learned along the way, some of the issues he faced and how to overcome it, and just see his process and then learn a bit about this kind of data table technique. So Peter, if you'd like to take it away. Great to have you on.
Sure thing. Can you guys hear me nice and clearly?
Yeah, I've got the audio all good.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Hello. Hello. I'm Peter.
Hey.
And thanks very much for having me on here.
No
Right
props.
now
Take it away.
so we're in Sydney right now. It's about midnight. While it's like I think 3 p.m. for you guys. I think it is. Yeah. So so I'll just be on here for an hour. I won't take too much of your time. So I figure I introduce you to what this program looks like. Let me go to the desktop capture so now you can see. So right now I have my arcade stick connected, and whenever I'm moving about, you can actually see feedback of this controller, and it has all these nice glowing flashy buttons and such, which is really really cool. But we can also have the ability to customize a bunch of things. So we can configure each of the buttons over here. We can configure the stick, and a menu pops up every time we click on a different option. So It's pretty cool. But we can also change the layouts. So when you click here, you get a huge selection of all the different kinds of brands that there are that you can pick from. And no matter what controller you're using, each of these layouts will work with them. So even if you happen to have a, let's say you have a controller that is not using a joystick. Um, so for context, what I mean is if I go to my webcam, you see that my joystick here, you can see that I'm using a joystick here. If I go back to the layout and I pick one that is not using a joystick, you can see there's not a single joystick here. But if I move it, you can still see inputs there. So that's one thing that I think is really, really cool. And but I guess a good place to start off would be to show you how this all started. So I'm gonna open up one of my first ever builds. This was done back in I think last year or 2 years ago, I think. And what I'll do, I'll close this and I'll open up the project. Keep in mind this was one of the very first versions that I ever put together. In fact, it was so basic I didn't even know what to call it. I just called it PDC Sky Export. I couldn't think of any other creative name. But this is what the layout first looked like. It was very, very primitive. When I play, um, yeah, there's the joystick there, and it pretty much generated a custom texture every single time that I pressed a button, which was quite nice. Um, and when I clicked on it, let's see what could we do with it. Um, we could change layouts, which was fantastic, but I only had 6 layouts at the time. Only 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That was all that I knew back then. And this was at a time when I was still very inexperienced about Blueprint. Uh, for a bit of context, I came from an artist background. I do not come from a programming background. So when I was first starting out on this thing, understandably, I was coding in extremely inefficient ways. Uh, I like to think that I've matured a little bit since then. Um, so what else can we do with this thing? If I go to arcade stick, we see we have an integer here. If I change this number, um, I actually change a certain type of layouts that I have. So that's actually quite nice. And the thing with this was I had not even considered the possibility of creating customization options. The thought had not ever occurred to me. I just wanted to create something like this so I could show it off on my streams, and that would be the end of it. But then some people started asking me some questions saying, well, Peter, what if we wanted to change the buttons from blue to yellow? Or what if we wanted to what if I wanted to change something else, like someone who wasn't me? And I thought that's actually a really good question. I could have gone the lazy way and just create a bunch of preset options. Um, but then a part of me just started to get a bit more curious each and every time. The biggest trouble with this was at the time that this was made, I did not know how to create any kind of customization, or at least in a way that was useful for people to use. So let me show you the second version of this. So I'll close this, and then don't save, and let's go into, this was I think version 8, so this was a little bit later. We'll open this. I still could not think of a proper name to call this, but let's open it up. All right, cool. So it's a little bit different. So now we have a tiny bit more customization. We still have the 6 layouts, which was fine. And we also have the different layouts were represented as, let's see, as different actor classes. Now, I still did not know how to do customization, but I felt like I was starting to get there at this point. So if I change this to, let's say, 0, we this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I went 5, nothing would happen. And yeah, so it would jump back to 4. This was actually, I'm gonna have to shout out to a Mr. Johnny Phrase. He was the man who put together this actual arcade stick in real life. He built these arcade sticks, but he also created the artwork. So he was the first person that I went to show what I had done with his creation in digital format. So and he was very happy to give me his blessing for me to continue this. So I really thank him for that. But yes, so these layouts here, I was starting to get a little bit of an inkling that customization might be possible, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there yet. And it actually plagued me for such a long time that I actually stopped development for like half a year because I just could not think of any way to do this. And keep in mind, I was pretty much doing this all by myself. So then I thought about, well, what is actually inside of these well actors? So I go inside. I go, okay, so it looks like we have a bunch of data here. Okay, so I go into here. Yep, there's a bunch of textures here, yada yada yada. That's all nice and dandy. Um, but what actually goes inside of the code? So I will actually show you what the code looks like. So I go into this. All this stuff is not really important. The biggest part that's important is actually in here. This is what controls all of the layouts. So I did say that we have a total um of 6 layouts here. This is the data where those layouts are stored. So we have a layout for the noir, the layout for Korean, noir Korean, Vulex, all buttons, Shokan Star, and WASD, WASD. And in each of these values, there is a particular transform. Now, what I learned from in my day job, I work as a Unreal developer for a company called Giraffic, and it's a broadcasting company. And one of the things that we learn is that whatever it is that we make, we have to be able to replicate it extremely quickly. And I was starting to understand that this particular method of developing by hard coding it was extremely, shall I say, bespoke. It was extremely inefficient. Um, why? Because even though these were 6 layouts, the really tricky part about this was I had to manually eyeball each of the positions of these particular buttons. So each of these values, they represent a particular button, and I had to eyeball it every single time. So I change a number, I hit play, and then if it's not correct, I go back out and I input a number again. And this was only for one layout. So the question goes, well, if you have to do this, how are you going to possibly do this for, let's say, 113 layouts? How are you going to do this without having to resort to eyeballing it every time? Because sooner or later, your eyeballing you're going to slip up, which is not good. So I had to think of a way to try to make this a lot more efficient. And by nature, I'm very, very lazy. So I wanted to find a method that would allow me to do this with the least amount of effort. I could tolerate doing a lot of hard work, just setting it up once. Then after that, I didn't want to have to ever touch this thing again, ever, ever. So I'm gonna be showing you how I approach this problem to a point where whenever I get a new layout, it's actually extremely easy to add the data to um, to make the layout work. So let me close this. Does this still work? I wonder if the code still works. Oh yes, it still works. Okay, yay! Okay, cool. All right, let's close that. Uh, okay, so I'm just gonna close this one now. Save, and I'm going to open up the demo project that I have prepared for us. So just patient with me for a bit. Da, da, da. There it is. Cool. Okay, I'm just opening it now. So basically, where it all starts off is it all starts from the basic 3D model. So whenever I need to make a brand new layout, it generally comes in the form of this. It generally looks like this. I use 3ds Max to make all of my stuff, and I just transplant it into here. And what I learned is if you can position all of your assets in the right position and have them at 0, 0, 0, then you're going somewhere along the right path. 0, 0, 0 is one of your best friends ever because it is where things are normalized. It is where things return to normal. So then I thought, okay, so we have this. How the the thing is, when I look at all of these different meshes, we have the punch buttons, we have the kick buttons, and we have a joystick. All the data is right here. All the position data that I need is right here somehow. I have to somehow get all these positions where they are in relation to the actual layout itself. Because right now, these are all separate objects. So the clue is in here somewhere. And 3ds Max actually has a really cool tool where you can affect the position of the pivots. Because the reason why I'm talking about this is back then, when I was first starting off in this, I used to have to, if my arcade stick had 10 layouts, because that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, I would have to actually save this file 10 times, once for every single individual element, and I had to make sure that I positioned the element at 0, 0, 0. And then when I brought it into Unreal Engine, I had to actually eyeball it and put it back to where the slot was. And that was extremely frustrating and tiring. So I'm going to show you a really cool tool that I came across. And that tool is Pivot Tool. Now, I'm not sure how much this actually costs on the Unreal Marketplace, but I really, if you guys really like manipulating pivots and stuff, then I highly recommend this tool because it is so incredibly awesome. And I'll show you what this does. So let's say that I click on, an element, and here I get to pick where the pivot moves. Because if you were to try to do this in Unreal Engine stock by itself, you would have to go right click, and then you would have to go pivot, set as set pivot offset here, and then voila, the pivot would be there. But you can see how inaccurate you are. And the bad thing is, if you click outside and then click back again, guess what? The pivot resets itself. So that's no good. So I had to change my approach. So that's where this little baby comes in, the pivot tool. So instead of having to right click and pivot set offset here, all you have to do is click on this. It should. Oh no! Snap to it. Does that actually work? Oh, wait. What was that? No! That's no good. That's no good. That's no good. Can I go into world space? Okay. That tool's not working as it should. No! It actually is. Yeah. But for now, it's not working when it wants to, which is upsetting. But that's okay. That's okay. But I'll show you the setup for how I do all this. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to create a structure. So one of the reasons why we have this thing is before you start work, you have to think um, what can be duplicated um, in something like this. So let's say in all arcade layouts, what do they all have? Well, they all have buttons. They all have joysticks. Well, most of them do. And what else? How many buttons do they have? They have uh, light punch, medium punch, heavy punch, and triple punch, light kick, medium kick, hard kick, triple kick. And we have a joystick. That's 9 elements. That's pretty much what we see here. So now let's create a table where we want to remember the positions of those buttons. So one of the things you have to do or you have to consider is you have to agree with yourself with a proper layout naming convention. So what I do is I'm going to go P1, P2, P3, P4, okay? And then I'm going to go K1, K2. This is important, guys. K3. Oh, whoops. And K4. Okay, cool. And what else do we have? We also had a joystick as well. So in in the fighting game world, in the fighting game community, we call this JLF. I don't remember what it stands for exactly, but it just means joystick or joystick lever or something. So okay, so we stick with that. So okay, cool. And once we set up our struct, we're going to create a data table. So the cool thing with layouts is once you get the data for the layout, you never ever ever have to change it again unless you make a mistake. You only have to set it once, and as long as you can reference it, you're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to go in here. Now that our struct is completed, our struct is called struct demo. We're going to go into blue. We're going to look for miscellaneous, and we're going to look for data table. And it's going to go, okay, so what structure do you want? Well, we want struct demo. And go, okay, so I'm just going to call this demo. And what we have is, voila, we have a list of rows that we can add. So every time we add a row, we get a list of all these variables. And so you can see where we are sort of going with this one. So let's see if I can get this tool to work, shall we? Okay. That's really, really bizarre. Yeah. Free scale, keep in place. That's really, really bizarre. Okay. Not to here. Oh, okay. I'll have to figure this out. That's okay. Okay. I'll show you one tool that I came up with that's actually proven to be extremely helpful. But let's see. So I'm going to go into Blueprint and I'm going to create a labeling tool. Now, what this is we're going to create this so we can keep track of what it is what we are hooking onto. So let's go into Open Blueprint Editor. And I have a habit of doing this. I always set this to root. And then I go into offset. All right, cool. And I'm going to be using something really cool called material billboards. So, okay, I'm going to go into textures and so I have these pre-made textures over here. It's just so I can keep track of what's going on. So let's put this into here and I'm just going to call this label P1, label P2, label P3, 4. Whoops. K1, K2, K3, K4, and JLF. Okay, cool. So we have that. And I'm just going to apply a material to this. So we're just going to go. Can we set the elements over here? Oh, okay. We actually have to make the material for that. Okay, that's fine. Okay. All right, cool. So then we will see this. Cool. Nice. So I'll just do this really, really quickly. Okay, K2. The cool thing is you only have to do this once, but then afterwards it just gets easier from here. Material. Whoops. That's P4. And now we go to the kicks. That's going to here. K1. Two. Okay, cool. And the last one's going to be the JLF. So JLF, cool. Let's create material. Cool. Okay. So now, if I move these guys apart, we should see this. Cool. Lovely, lovely. K1, K2, K3, K4, and JLF is in the middle. Cool, cool. Okay, so now if I put this guy into our world, okay, cool. So that's where we are. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is, well, for some reason I can't get this pivot thing to work, but I came prepared because I actually do have this exact mesh that I need in here. So I go into layouts. So this is BNB Vuelix1. So if I close this, delete, and I go into Vuelix, I actually have prepared all the meshes that we need here for that. Okay, and just for fun, I'm going to put these in random positions because I can't exactly eyeball it to fit into the slots. So let's say that I move this here, P3, MP4, and then let's move the Ks, K1, K2, 3, and K4. So let's say that this is a completely random, very unusual arcade layout. And what I'm going to do afterwards, I'm going to attach them to the Vuelix, the layout. So whenever I move them, all the buttons and joysticks move along with it. So that's cool. Okay. So now that we have our blueprint set up, we have our button labels and we have our buttons, we have our layouts, all the things are positioned. So now the next thing we have to do is we have to figure out how can I get the labels, or how can I get the exact position that these guys are in a really fast and efficient way. So if I look at P1, we can see that it has coordinates over here. P2 has certain coordinates, P3 has coordinates. All these things have different coordinates. Now, it's going to be extremely tiring and tedious if I tried to eyeball it all on my own. And that's no good. So what we have to do is we have to go into our little arcade tool over here. And this is where we start to create functions that we can call in editor. If you are unsure what that is, so let's say we're going to call get positions. Save this. If you guys are unsure of what call in editor is, it's a function that you can call while you're still in construction. So if I get positions, it doesn't really seem to do anything. But if I go call in editor, then I save, then I get positions, we can see this now. So when you press this button, something happens. So we're thinking, okay, all right, cool. That's a good thing to know. All right, cool. So let's see. So what's the next step? Let me just get my notes. Data. Cool. Let's grab that really quickly. Okay, just so I can keep track of everything. Okay, so one of the things that we have to select is we have to be able to pick what we are selecting. So we're going to create a couple of variables. So I'm going to go main layout, and this is going to be a static mesh actor. Okay, so we're going to do this piece by piece, piece by piece. Okay, so what happens when we have a main layout, which is a static mesh? So right now, if I go into here, I click on this, then I go and then I select the view links. Okay, cool. Now we're actually getting somewhere. Okay, we've selected this main layout, and that's fine. So now the next step is we're going to do a little bit of a check here. Using the information we have from the main layout, we have to somehow get all the actors that are the children of this actor. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. So from main layout, I'm going to go get static mesh component because we have to reference it inside. And here's a really, really cool trick. We're going to get children components and include all descendants. And what this does is this node here, it gets all of this information here, which is brilliant. I love it. So now we go for each, and let's click on this. Actually, for a bit of a safety measure, is we should always go is valid, because one of the most annoying errors you can ever get is access none. If you guys come across it, you guys know what I mean. Okay, so I save this. All right, cool. And then let's see. Oh yeah, that's right. We have to include the layout button positions. So we have to be able to store this information somehow. So I'm going to go variable, and I'm going to go into our struct in our demo scene and go struct demo, because that was what we used to create the demo table. So let's go into here and let's create a new variable called struct demo. I accidentally created a variable twice. Struct demo. Cool. There we are. So now that I have my struct inside of this blueprint, we can turn the eye on so we can see. And I suspect, since we have all vectors here, if I click on this, we should see all vectors here. Yes, they're all vectors. Cool. Excellent. So I'll save that. And now, what we're going to do, we are going to get the owner. Okay, and let's see if we can cast to static mesh. Cast to static mesh actor. We want to get this information. Okay, cool. So because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because there are 9 elements, we're gonna have to do a sequence of codes 9 times. So let's go into here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we are. Just like that. We will need this for later, but that's okay. Now we need some way to reference each one of these buttons via code. And one of the most popular ways to do that is using something called tags or actor tags. This is not to be confused with component tags. We're using actor tags. It seems to be a really efficient way of communicating between actors. So to find a tag, to find the actor tag, you just click on one of the buttons, and we close all of this, and we look for actor, and it's right over here, and we go down, and here it says tags. This is where we add the tags, and the tag that we're going to give it is basically what it's named after. So if I go here, I'm going to call this JLF. In here, so we're going to have to add this for every single one. Add K1. Okay. Add K2. Then let's go add K3. Add K4. And over here, add P1. Add P2. P3. P4. Okay, so all of these guys now have their own actor tags. So that's cool. So what exactly can we do with this? Well, what we do is we go up to here, we branch off from our cast static mesh actor, and we go actor has tag. Now, because we have elements, we have 9 elements. Let's just copy this 9 times. So we have actor tag. That's 4. And let's do it one more time. Well, and let's go connect these guys. Okay, and we're going to go in the very same order that we used to create the structure. So actor has tag P1, P2, P3. Then we go P4, then K1, 2. Oh, no! K3, K4, and JLF. Oh, whoops. You want to make sure you get the spelling correct. There we go. And then we create just a bunch of branches. There, like so. And I'll just do this again. Okay, nice. Oops. Cool. So once we have that, we are going to set. So if we run through this, and let's say that the actor tag for P1 is true, if this actor really does have an actor tag of P1, we want to move the label of P1 to the position of where this actor is. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pick this label and let's see. I'm going to, let's say, set a relative location. So, oops, set relative location. Cool. And let's say that we get this. Where's the position from? Okay, cool. So then we just have to get this. Whoops, sorry. Let's branch it off. Get relative location. Let's see where we can get this from. Get relative. There we go. So just make sure I'm correct. Cool. Yep. Get relative location. And let's just drag this guy up here. And all right, let's just see what happens for now. So let's test it with only one button, and let's see what actually happens. So I click here. Let's click on this guy. Get positions. Ooh. Okay, that's cool. All right. So what happens now? Remember what I said? What our favorite number was. So I'm going to move this guy. Let's move into 0, 0, 0. Okay, so we can see that when I move into 0, 0, 0, the P1 is exactly where the P1 button is. So that's brilliant. And so once we have that number, we have to somehow transfer this data into the table here or into this struct. So that's going to be the next thing that we're going to do. So I'm just skipping through this really, really quickly because we don't have that much time left. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is we have to go into the struct demo, and then we're going to go set members in struct demo. So it allows us to take this value and put a value inside of here. But because we're only configuring it for P1, I'm just going to take P1 there, just like that, and we're just going to copy this value over. Okay, just like that. Okay, So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pretty much do the same thing for all the other values. So P2, P3. So you can imagine that this is a very tedious process, but the cool thing is you only have to do it once, and afterwards it'll pretty much all flow smoothly from here. And afterwards, I'll show you what the actual code all looks like. It looks like a huge mass of spaghetti. Let's that and JLF. Cool. And let's set relative location. If it works once, then it'll work for the rest of them. Okay, let's go P2. Let's add our branch events. Okay, that's all the P buttons, I believe. Okay, and then I have to add this guy. Okay, and I'll do it for the rest. Just because we started, so we might as well finish it. Okay, let's go P2. Okay, that looks fine. And then we just have to connect these structs. Now you can imagine how tedious this will be doing for 113 layouts. Down there. Cool. And not that much left to go. This is just for position, by the way. And JLF. All right, cool. So let's save that. So now, if I click get positions now, what should happen in theory is that all the labels should jump to their respective positions according to where each of these guys are. So let's go get positions. Voila! And look at that. The positions are right where they are. And guess what? Look at the structure. Look at our table. It's all going here. And that's brilliant. Look at that. Okay. Okay, that's progress. All right, cool. So now, once we have that, we now have to get this data into the data table. Because right now, the data table is still pretty empty. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to actually, the only hard work on our part is we just have to tell it what name it is. So let's just go, this is B&B01. I'll call this Vuelix. That's pretty much it. That's the only hard work that we're going to do. We don't really have to do anything else. So, okay, so I'll leave that there. All right, cool. So now that we have the positions of where those buttons are, we're now going to create another event, and this one's going to be called send to data table. There we are. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to summon a data table node. So does data table row exist? Okay, so we're going to go into here and we're going to look for DT demo, and let's click on this, and we want to be able to enter in the name of the row somehow. So I'm just going to create a variable out of this, and we want to be able to see this. So click on that. And afterwards, we're going to add data table row. Whoa, whoops, toe. So what this basically means is if there is a row with a name that I specify, I want you to, in our case, I want you to override it with what I send you. So I'm just going to go click here and we're going to go DT demo and we're going to add the data which comes from our struct demo. So we're going to add these coordinates into the out row. So I click here and voila. Okay, so if I do this, great, fantastic. So what we have to do now is we have to know, or we have to remember what the name of this guy was. So let's go back into our data table and we go, it was BNB01 underscore Vuelix. So I can conceivably do that. I could type in BNB01 underscore Vuelix and it will probably most likely work, but there is a much more efficient way that we can do this because again, uh, being inherently lazy, I had to find a way where I don't have to type in the name because I could make a typing mistake. Always assume that you're going to make a mistake. So whenever I do my work, I always assume the worst case scenario where everything goes wrong. So I try to leave it in the fates of uh, in the hands of the computer to do most of the work for me. So what we can do in the construction script is we're going to get a data table row names and we're going to go DT demo and we're going to give this a variable out row names and we're going to get from one of these guys. So I guess we can just make a copy and that's okay. Let's make this a selected entry. Okay, and we're going to go, let's see, okay, oh yeah, that's right, we have to set this to the row name. Set this to the row name, and we're going to, I think that should be it, that should be okay for now. That should be okay. Save, and let's set this to the set entry. And this will only make sense if I have various names. So let's say that I call this one hitbox cross up, and I'll add another one. Let's call it Madcats TE2. So let's say that we have 3 different entries. So what we can do now is if I change this number, it's going to change the name to the data table name here. So therefore, we don't have to type it anymore. We only have to change the number. And if it's higher, it will just go none. So that's really, really cool. So that's a little trick there for you guys, if you guys are messing around with data tables. Okay, so now that we have the name right, I'm just going to go BP01, BNB01 Vuelix, and I'm going to get positions. And we forgot to set this to in editor. Okay, I close this, I close this. So we have our positions, and we're going to go send to data table. Send. Okay, we clicked it. So now what? Let's go to our data table, and hopefully we'll see these numbers go up. And voila, what do you know? The numbers are all here. Numbers are all here. So if I click on this guy and go up, look at that. Our data table now has all the values that we stored in here. So this means that if you ever need to make a change to any one of these layouts, all you have to do is click send to data table and it will automatically update. That's really, really cool. Okay, so now I get to show you what this looks like in full form because this was only capturing positions of things. So, so let me save this and I'll show you what this all looks like in the actual form. So that'll remind me later. Go away. All right, let's see if I can find the layouts correctly. Okay, so I'm opening the actual project now. So this is the latest version, and you guys will get to see how complex it is. Just loading now. Okay, so this is the actual layout now, and this is a map of all the layouts that we have. We have 100. We have 113 here. Well, actually, we have 114. We have 114 layouts here, but I've deliberately excluded one of the layouts because it has too many buttons that far exceed any of these arcade layouts. But you can see the pattern of behavior here. We can see the labels P1, P2, P3. We can see the number of the entry here and the name of the data table row here. So if I go into this guy here and let's go into the code, we can see that the code is pretty much almost the same. Well, this is pretty much exactly the same. But over here, we capture the position, we capture if it is ever using it, and we capture the actual mesh. So when we go into here and I go into layout positions, this is pretty much what I showed you before, where it captured the positions, but it also captured the booleans if it is using it or not. If it is using it, then the button will appear in the layout. If it is false, the button will simply disappear because it's not being used. And in here, if I go into scales, or here there's a scale. This is a manual input because why would you want to have a scale um, for your button? Well, I'm very happy to show you. Because some arcade sticks, they have a button over here, which is about 30 millimeters over here. But you also have buttons that look like this, where this is your typical 30 millimeter. But here, these buttons here, they're actually a little tiny bit smaller. They're 24 millimeters. So you have to take into account for that. And there are also buttons as well, where you have 30s, but you also have even smaller. So sometimes the start button is very, very small as well. So you have to take that into account. So jump back. So, um, so this is, let's see, what's an example of one? All right, cool. So these are the normal size buttons. So if I go into here, we can see the scale is set to 1.08. While in this version, where the buttons are much, much smaller, you can see here, it says 24 millimeters. I click here, the scale is 0.08. So this controls the scale. Now this also controls the mesh too. Because the thing is, the reason why I would want to record what each of the meshes are is because they each have a very unique UV layout. And to show you what I mean, one of the things that we can do with this is I click here. Let's say I go into LIU Overlay and I run this. Let's say that I want to change the layout to, let's say that I change it to the VNB. So something really easy and simple. Yeah. So this is the Vuex. One of the things that I do with this is I'm going to configure the artwork. So I load an artwork and there it is. Let's do that. And one of the things that we can do is we can actually set the button artwork. So if I go button art, we can see there's a little bit of image here. And then I go enable. And you can see that there's actually the picture of the wallpaper on the actual button itself. So if I want to change the position of this, we can see the button change position as well. Now I can choose to use the background image for the button texture, or I can choose to use a custom. So I can choose to go load, and let me load a picture of this. And voila, we can see a picture of a little chibi character. And I guess to make us see it better, let's just make this black and yeah, whoops, there we go. And if I want to copy all of it, go OK. And if I want to copy all the button art, then I can do that too. So you can choose between having a custom art or using the background. And the reason why I recorded the mesh is they each have their own. They each have two unique UV channels. Where the first UV it follows the background image, and the other one just follows a perfect square. So that's another reason why. All right, so let's close this. That's fine. But yes, so this little map here contains all the data on every single layout that I use, and it's how I'm able to keep on top of keeping all their positions. Um, when I made this tool, this was actually a recent tool I made about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's made working with this extremely easy and very, very peaceful. Let me tell you, it's working with this has been a pure joy now. It's not frustrating. I don't have to ever eyeball things anymore. It's all done pretty much automatically. As long as I keep consistent as to, well, because everything has the punch buttons, kick buttons, JLF, home, and start. Sometimes sometimes we may have a lot on our hands, because there are some layouts which use a heck of a ton more buttons. So an example of this would be the cross up actually. Yeah, this one where this uses the punch, kicks, and directionals and the joystick. So uh, sometimes that's a bit of a handful. The biggest handful is definitely this one. This is the controller that Smash players use, and this is one of the layouts that I actually left out of my layout program because there's just way too many buttons, and I'm not gonna have enough to program this. If I really want to program this in, I'm gonna have to buy myself a Smash controller or a GameCube controller so I can understand how this works. But the other of the all the other layouts, they all use one of or at least some of the 16 buttons that are available, and they're all pretty consistent. Um, so uh, yeah, this is pretty much how I keep on top of it all by working like extremely efficiently, having a good naming convention and a good button order, agreeing to a certain um, naming convention, and creating a solid foundation where you only have to create the setup just once, and then after that, it's just a single button press, and it pretty much does all the work for you. So you want to try to make it as easy for yourself as possible. Give yourself every chance to succeed at this thing and reduce the amount of errors that you get. But yeah, uh, yeah. I hope you guys were able to pick up something. Uh, if you guys are developing stuff of your own, like games or your own apps, hopefully you guys found something useful with this. So yeah, Rick, that will be it for me.
Ooh, thank you so much. It's really, really insane the amount of customization you planned into this, and yeah, super impressive. Yeah, I'm sure some people find this super useful for yeah anything where you got kind of save game states and like needing to keep that customization well ordered. It's just yeah, super
Yeah.
useful, super useful for it. I wasn't really even aware of data tables until you told me about these, so yeah.
Ah.
It's very cool. Very cool.
Me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. There will be a re-upload of this later on. I'll get that out as soon as possible if you want to watch this from the start again, because I know a few people joined in later on. But yeah, just to say big thank you to Peter. That's really amazing, and do follow along his journey and check out his executable on his Twitter, which I will link in the voice channel notes. So yeah, follow along
Awesome.
his journey there. But yeah, thanks so much,
Uh,
Peter.
uh, good. Thank you very much.
Cool. Cool. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Yeah.